Ladies and gentlemen, now you see it again. You know when I bring out the championship belt signed by the immortal Hulk Hogan, you know we're going to talk about some professional wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor, my privilege to bring in somebody who's been wrestling for over 30 years. He's wrestling in Japan, Puerto Rico, America, Mexico, you name it, every continent on earth he has wrestled. Ladies and gentlemen, you may know him as a Giant Warrior or Tiger Steele, but ladies and gentlemen, his real life name is Jeff Bearden. Jeff, how you doing today?
Good, buddy. Good to be on the show.
Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's a complete honor because, you know, talking to somebody who's been wrestling for over 30 years is hell, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I did it for a little bit.
Just a little bit. How's those knees?
Don't ask. I've had one replaced and I've got to have the other one replaced sometime soon.
Just a couple of minutes ago, I was watching a match of you in All Japan Pro Wrestling. It was you and your tag team partner versus two legends in professional wrestling, Giant Baba and Andre the Giant. And right before the end of the match, Giant Baba tagged in Andre the Giant, and you got a headbutt. And then all of a sudden, Andre the Giant wanted to hit you on the chest, but he slapped the hell out of you in your face. And I was like, damn. I looked at you and I was like, I was watching this right while I was talking to you, and I was like, damn. And then you was like, well, stuff happens.
It does. I mean, nobody's perfect 100% of the time.
So let's start off from the beginning, man. How'd you get started in professional wrestling?
I grew up in Amarillo, Texas. So I was around Dory and Terry Funk a lot when I was growing up because I went to school with Dory Funk Jr.'s kids. So, through them, Dory had me, left me tickets for the wrestling matches every week. And so I would go when I could. And if I couldn't, it was no big deal. But so I really got to enjoy meeting a lot of the wrestlers and stuff over the years. And, the Funks are who I turned to when I got ready to start wrestling. And they had told me that they would help train me when I was in high school, but I had to get a college degree before they would consider doing it. So I had just got through playing professional basketball in Belgium. They moved back to the States. I called Terry and told him that I wanted to start wrestling. So they said, well, give me a call in a couple of days and stuff, and I'll let you know what we're going to be able to do. Or during that time and stuff, they actually called my dad to find out whether I got a college degree or not. And then once they found that out, then I went out to North Carolina and started training with Dory.
Now, how do I say this? When I take it you started wrestling in the early 80s, am I correct?
87.
87. Okay, so during that time, people, I try not to sound like a little wrestling mark, like wrestling fans today, but I guess the kayfabe era is over. I really do. I'm old fashioned because I still watch wrestling like a sport, but the shoot interviews and everything. So I guess I need to adapt. They say the wrestling business was protected back in the day.
It was.
Did you get whooped?
As far as with training?
Far as is when you started training, did they work your ass off? I mean, did they work you? Did they make you do 400 squats?
No, I would have
make you throw up.
Completely different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was Dory Funk Jr. and stuff trained me himself. So I didn't have to go through the schools and all the crazy 1,000 squats and setups and everything like that. So Dory took me in the ring the first day, had me get on my hands and knees and waist locked me, and then told me to get away from it. Well, after about 3-4 minutes and stuff, I was done. I was blown. I couldn't get away. And got up from that, and he said, okay, that's what we call a shoot. He said, now I'm going to teach you how to work. And so I went in immediately and started learning how to work. He wasn't trying to chase me away.
Oh, so you went straight to knowing how to fall,
right?
Knowing how to do the punches and stuff everybody can learn on YouTube now. It's so funny. It pisses me off because, used to, when I was growing up watching wrestling, y'all, and I know you heard it too, especially watching wrestling as a child. I don't like, it used to be so real back when I watched it, but now it's so fake and all this crap. And it used to irritate the hell out of me. But now you just watch, everybody knows what everybody knows how to do in professional wrestling now just by watching YouTube. It pisses me off. Like I can't watch an old match now, which I do. I watch more of the old stuff now. Old stuff like during your era,
right?
Like, 80s and 90s. But, it's hard to watch it because, like, you'll watch something like Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik, and then the Iron Sheik starts blading. You know exactly what he's doing with his hands because he's doing this.
Right.
It's like, God, why do I have to know he's doing that?
That's an art.
Yeah.
To be able to do that without being caught.
Yeah, but see, back in the day, the cameras could be right there and record it, and you wouldn't even be a riser because you didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
You see what I mean? But now it's like magic. At the time, people thought magic was real.
That's true.
Now, I guess now we all know psychics ain't real, magic ain't real. Wrestling, it's like now the fun is gone. People never understand.
I got the thing from my grandfather and stuff when I started wrestling and stuff about how stuff when he used to watch Gorgeous George back when wrestling was real. It's not like the fake stuff that I do. So I got to hear that growing up.
Yeah, I got it all the time too. It's like, hey, you know what? Nobody's asking you to watch it with me. Why don't you go in the other room? I tell my kids all the time, like, that I make fun of the belt because this is one of my prized possessions. I mean, it's signed by my childhood hero. And I tell them, like, look, Hulk Hogan had to fight a giant to keep this belt. A giant. Do you understand? He had to fight a giant just to keep this belt? And you going to make fun of it? And just like every episode, Hulkamania gets a little heavy, so I put it down. I just would like to show it off every time I have a wrestling person on. Let them know, hey, I got a championship belt too. But so you was taught by Dory Funk Jr. What was the Funks like? Especially Terry? What was he like in real life?
They were great. I love Terry to death. I still, when I go home and try to see my dad and stuff, a lot of times I'll try to get together with Terry or at least give him a call and, see how he's doing. But they were both really good to me. And then when Dory wasn't training me, Dick Murdoch was the other one and stuff that worked with me a lot.
Whoa. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. See, when I was doing my research on you, I saw Dory Funk. I didn't know you knew Dick Murdoch. Now, what was Dick Murdoch like?
Dickie was crazy and stuff. He was always a lot of fun to be around. So, boy, did that guy love to drink beer.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, I did it one time in my life, I guess.
Oh, when the doctor told me I had to quit drinking, it nearly killed me. I was like, I was debating. To this day, I negotiate. Like, okay, I know I'm on this medication. I know I can't drink, but maybe I can have 5. And they're just looking at me like, no. I don't think you understand. No drinking for you. It's like 6. Okay, I mean 4. Can I have 4? But, have to ask, was Dusty Rhodes right behind you? Did you ever meet him?
I actually started with Jim Crockett Promotions. That was my first match.
Really? Yeah.
So Dusty was my booker at the time. So yeah, I spent some time around Dusty, and I originally started off. He gave me the name Butch Bonner and stuff, and I was doing a cowboy gimmick.
Oh, really?
So
any major shows you wrestled in with NWA?
Oh, just house shows.
I'm talking about the Crockett era NWA.
Yeah, that was
Just,
when I was starting in the Carolinas and stuff. Was for Jim Crockett Jr.
Right. So you just did mostly house shows, no major shows like.
Right. They didn't do a lot with me, and so I kind of started going out doing independent shows and stuff at that time.
One of my earliest memories happened, I guess, statute of limitations is I guess after almost 30 years, over 30 years, I guess I could tell the story. My father had this big satellite dish back in 87.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those big satellite dishes, and where, you know, you could get like the free pay-per-views and all that stuff.
Right.
And you know, Starrcade and Survivor Series 87 was, you know, back to back. I remember getting mad at my dad. You know, my dad's not somebody you want, especially at like 4, you want to get mad at. But he wanted to watch Starrcade, and you know, I wanted to watch Survivor. I want to see Hulk Hogan. You know, like, hey,
right.
You know, got to put Hulk Hogan on. You know, and I remember getting mad. Like, he was like, "Wait till this is over. We'll turn on the other. We'll turn on the other thing when this is over." I'm like, "No, you turn it on now." And you know, if you know my dad, somebody you don't talk back to. But anyway, good thing about this not being live, we can talk, and then most of the shit be like edited out. So you be like,
okay.
So you got a taste of the international level. You wrestle in All Japan. Did you ever wrestle in New Japan?
No. All my matches in Japan. Well, I did one show for FMW in the 2000s, but my other matches were always for All Japan, because I mean the Funks were very heavily involved with All Japan, so they were the ones that got me in my first time.
Oh, so is it more like a loyalty thing to All Japan?
Yeah, I was never even interested in trying to go somewhere else. I was happy with All Japan.
Well, you know, I hate to ask this question because wrestling fans will probably be very upset with me. Is All Japan still in business?
Yeah, All Japan's still there. New Japan's the big company now. When I was there, All Japan was probably a little bit above New Japan.
Yeah, because I mean, I hear, you know, now IWGP, New Japan. I mean, New Japan Pro Wrestling is one of the major markets in professional wrestling. Not just in Japan, but in America. People love I was in Madison Square Garden watching a New Japan Pro Wrestling event in New York City. Yeah, so I mean, now people know about New Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of people, even I, don't know that much about All Japan Pro Wrestling. When I think Japan wrestling, I think New Japan. How do you think wrestling fans today will take to All Japan Pro Wrestling back when you was there?
Well, you know, it's a different creature now. You know, the style of wrestling and everything is different. You know, when I was going over there and stuff, things were a lot more solid, you know, than what it was working in the States, because the Japanese crowds and stuff, if they couldn't hear it, they didn't believe it. So it was hard to throw a good punch because the people couldn't hear anything. But if you're throwing a forearm or a chop, that's where the chops got to be such a big thing over in Japan. So it's because people could hear those, you know, so you're laying those in pretty heavy. And that was what made the fans happy with it. So it's a different style working in Japan.
Of course. Now let me ask you. You know, you was in All Japan Pro Wrestling. We just talked about it just 2 seconds ago. I mean, I was watching the match with you with Giant Baba and Andre the Giant. What was it like wrestling people like Andre the Giant and Giant Baba? And you even I even heard that you had a match with Abdul the Butcher. What's it like wrestling these legends in professional wrestling?
It was great. You know, some guys and stuff would be nervous when they got put in the ring with a big name. I always enjoyed it, you know, because I knew I was always going to be safe. You know, and I would learn. So, I mean, there were a lot of big names and stuff on my first Japan tour. You know, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Terry Gordy, Stan Hansen, British Bulldogs, you know, Abdullah, Kamala, the Funks. You know, so there were a lot of names and stuff on that tour. So I was getting to work with those kind of guys and stuff almost every night. So it was a great experience.
Any I hate to do this to you. I know you're not going to want to answer this, and you don't have to if you don't want to. But was there any professional wrestler that we American fans like Andre the Giant, Abdul the Butcher, Terry Gordy, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, any wrestler that had a big name that was just a complete?
You know, there were some guys and stuff out there, I guess, that, you know, kind of bought into their own publicity and, you know, what they read about themselves and stuff in the magazines. But for the most part, stuff, I never really had many problems working with anybody. You know, I had, you know, an issue with a wrestler and stuff in Mexico when I was down there. But other than
you can drop the name. I won't tell nobody.
Oh, I got to think of what his name was. I think it's Mogur. And, you know, the Mexican people and stuff, it's a different type of crowd set down there too and stuff. You know, they don't care how much you get your butt beat as long as you stay in there and do it. And the kid was working, did a couple of stiff shots with me. And, you know, when I started trying to come back and go after him a little bit, he actually got out of the ring and kind of ran from me. Well, that killed him and stuff with the Mexican crowds, and he was never really the same again.
Yeah, I would run fast too. You're like what, 6'8"?
7 foot.
You're 7 foot. Yeah, I promise you, I give you my word as a man. I promise you, I'll get that cheap shot in, and then I'm gonna take off running, and you're not gonna catch me either.
I'm too old and slow now to catch anybody.
I talk about in 1990. I would have got my cheap shot in, and then boom, be like Speedy Gonzalez. Where's he at? Don't know. You be talking to yourself. So, you know, I had to ask you because, you know, growing up, Andre the Giant was a big name.
Right.
You know, we were just talking about having Hulkamania on my shoulder and telling my kids that Hulk Hogan had to fight a giant to, you know, to keep that belt. You know, that giant was Andre the Giant. And rumor has it, if you watch a lot of shoot interviews, like, I don't know, like this guy, they had a rumor that Andre the Giant either liked you or he hated you. So what boat were you on? Were you on?
He was good.
I noticed in the match. Now, see, I noticed in the match, there's a rumor has it he did not like professional wrestlers going over the top rope. And I noticed in that match I watched, you went over the top rope. I noticed Giant. Yeah, I noticed that. So, and then when you got slapped, I kind of was like, was that slap meant for like, hey, you know, you don't go over the top rope? What was your relationship with Andre the Giant?
You know, it's very limited. I mean, Andre was really great with the guys that he knew. Now, young guys coming in and stuff that he didn't know very well, and so he could be very aloof. But, you know, I got to speak with him a little bit. He was always good to me. I think a lot of it stuff probably came from my connection to the Funks. So I kind of got that little bit of friendliness and stuff that other people might not have gotten.
Yeah, you could tell during that time, you know, that match happened in 1990. You get in a lot of old All Japan Pro Wrestling that I see Andre the Giant in. He could barely move. He wasn't. It's almost hard to watch. And that match was almost kind of hard to watch too, because you could tell he was, he wasn't the same Andre the Giant that I grew up watching.
I always said I wished I could have worked with Andre when he was about 15 years younger, and I was about 5 or 6 more years into my career. Because I was still very green and inexperienced, really, when I went to Japan the first time. So, I mean, it took me a few years before I finally developed my own style and got comfortable in the ring. So I would have loved to have been able to wrestle against Andre, 70s, 80s Andre, and me more in the 2000s.
Let's talk about everybody's favorite hepatitis professional wrestler, Abdul the Butcher. Now, I talked to a professional wrestler on this channel. He had a lawsuit against him about giving him hepatitis. What was your relationship with Abdul the Butcher?
I had a great rapport and stuff with Abby. We wrestled each other in Japan. We wrestled each other in Puerto Rico. And he was always, he was one of the biggest gentlemen, I guess, that you could actually ask for. He was very polite outside of the ring, and his persona in the ring was much different than what his persona out of the ring was.
I've seen so many stuff where he was just a very shady person. It has been caught on video that I kind of just made my own perception of the man. I never met him, but based on what I've seen on video, like telling people he's gonna stop the interview unless he gets paid more money, and the thing that he did with Hannibal, stuff like that, and then the not gonna make any accusations, but the thing that happened with Bruce Brody and him being part of the office in Puerto Rico, and it's a lot of stuff about Abdul the Butcher that I just kind of like, he probably wasn't a good guy. But then again, I'm a big Hulk Hogan fan.
Right.
So, people say all the time, like, Hulk Hogan was this and this and this, but I don't care. I love Hulk Hogan. So who am I to judge? I never met the man. Abdul the Butcher, I'm sure you're watching. I've never met you, but you seem like just saying.
He was great with me. I never had any problems with Abby. He was really what made me in Puerto Rico, because I was pretty much an unknown guy and stuff when I came into Puerto Rico. And the first time I worked with Abby, he got ready to get the fork out. So I knew, okay, it's time, it's that time and stuff. And he didn't let me bleed that first night. I stopped the fork and used it on him, and I didn't bleed a drop that first night. And that kind of got me over with the Puerto Rican people, because very few people wrestle with Abby without bleeding. So that helped set me up over there. So I was always very appreciative for him taking good care of me like he did. Oh, and then, of course, we had some crazy matches and stuff as well. That was a lot of fun. The man had great vision and stuff. He could spot a foreign object from across the room and knew what he was going to use it for. And he would tell me, grab this. And I didn't even see it. He had to point it out to me. But yeah, I mean, I can't knock Abby. Abby was always good to me.
Well, of course, anybody that's good to you in person, I'm the same way. A lot of people will say this person is or he's a jerk or he's this and that, but then he comes up to me and nice. I'm not going to bash the guy, because he's your enemy doesn't make him my enemy, So I understand I understand what you're saying. And if I met Abdul the Butcher and he was nice to me, I'll treat him with the same amount of respect. I'm just saying that what I've seen and what I've heard and what I've seen on video, that I can I can base a perception on what he's really like in real life. But
Right.
you know, like I said, I never met him, so who am I to judge? Let's talk a little rose. Let's talk a little road stories. You know, you travel all over the world. You got any funny stories from the road?
Oh God. You know, it was always different for me and stuff because I was working in foreign countries. You know, I spent 3/4 or 80% of my career working overseas. And
are you a married?
You know, so
first question. Hang on 1 second. Are you a married man?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Multiple times. Finally found one that works out perfectly for me, but it took me getting out of wrestling and stuff probably to make this thing work. You know, it was tough on relationships when you were on the road because, you know, we didn't have the Facebooks and Zooms and things like that. So you had to call it from overseas on calling cards. And those things were always expensive. So, I mean, if you were wanting to make money, you didn't spend a lot of time on the phone. So it made it a lot harder for relationships to be kept together and stuff during that time. But, you know, now and stuff, I've got a great wife, and we have a public relations company and a book publishing company together. So a little bit different from the rest of the world.
Yeah, wrestling stories back in your day are 10 times more fun to listen to than what these kids do today.
I've had issues with fans and stuff. You know, I've been stabbed 5 times in my career.
5 times, and I bet it happened all in Puerto Rico too, didn't it?
No, I never got stabbed in Puerto Rico.
Really?
Like I said, I was a baby face in Puerto Rico, so people weren't mad at me. If I ever got hit in Puerto Rico, it's because they missed somebody else. You know, but I mean, my first was in Mexico City. I took 60 stitches in my stomach in Mexico City the first time.
What did you do?
Then there was a time in you know, it was just it was a sold out show in a giant bullfighting ring, and we had a really hot finish, and the people were pissed. You know, so I mean, they tried to take shots at me whenever they could. And as I was going back up, I was with Owen Hart was actually with me that night. And Owen and I and stuff were trying to get back up from the bullfighting ring and stuff back up the steps and everything to get to the dressing rooms. And I had a chair over my head to protect myself from coins and anything else they might want to throw. And somebody caught me in my stomach. And kind of Zorro, he got me one way and then got me back a second way.
Damn.
But then I had Dominican Republic, and then 3 times in South Africa. One in Cape Town and twice.
You don't mess with Dominicans. Them people.
And it was
I guess I know I'm half Puerto Rican, and I kind of gotta like watch what I say because I'm still a white country boy. But every Dominican I ever met has been crazy. I'm like, dude, just chill. I'm like, God, just calm down. But yeah, YouTube don't strike me. I know.
You know, and the Dominican thing was an old lady. She had to be in her 60s or 70s and took a swipe at me with a straight razor.
Damn. Yeah, I would hit the old lady. I'm talking all this armchair quarterbacking, what I would have done and what I would. But I mean, I just can't picture myself. I keep imagining that scene with Hulk Hogan and this old woman back in Nitro, and they were just yelling and screaming at each other. But you was getting stabbed by this old woman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the worst one was probably in Durban, South Africa, when I got stabbed in the chest. And the doctor told me when he was stitching me up, he said the only thing that saved me was the fact that the blade was going up and down, and when it hit my rib, it went up. If it had been turned sideways, it'd gone between the ribs and got my heart.
I mean, did you have that much heat that.
Yes.
Golly,
They had a
dude,
lot of heat in South Africa.
You gotta be a little nicer in the ring. Golly.
I was probably
Treat
still 25 years out of my 30.
You gotta be treating these good guys better, man. See, I still to this day don't understand how Kane got to be mayor in that city in Tennessee. All the stuff he did to the Undertaker. I mean, you can't do that stuff to your brother and then expect to be mayor.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah, I know it's a crazy world. You need to be a little nicer in South Africa. You know what? Who did you beat up to get stabbed in South Africa?
Gama Singh. I don't know. Gama's an Indian wrestler from Canada, but he and I had a great feud. I mean, we wrestled each other, and I wrestled in Durban, South Africa 15 times. I had 11 police escorts out. It was stabbed twice. I had him drop, Warlord. I'm sure you know who Warlord is. He was in on a tour and stuff, and we were doing a tag match, and after that, he said he would never tag with me in South Africa again because it just got so crazy.
Yeah, you got to be nice, man. Stop. Don't be such a jerk.
No, that
brings me to
very aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive. You got to keep these good guys and golly. It kills me learning about professional wrestling now. The good guys are usually the assholes, and the bad guys in real life are the nicest people in the world.
Yeah. I've run into that several times.
I met Ted DiBiase, and I'm like, God, you're like one of the nicest human beings I ever met him. Of course, he's a minister, and he's going to do your testimony. I'm thinking to myself, I hated you so much. I really wanted you to die the way you treated Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like shaking his hand, and he's being very polite, nice. What was wrestling like during the kayfabe era?
I enjoyed it a lot more. It was fun for me to try to convince the people it was real. So I preferred that a lot more than, the guys now and stuff that want to walk through every little spot and thing to do in the dressing room. If you want to scare some of the young kids and stuff that haven't been wrestling very long, tell them you're going to call it in the ring and not walk through anything. Kids today and stuff don't know what to do with that. But that was what we were used to back in the 80s. You were basically told how they wanted to start a match and what the finish was going to be, and maybe a spot or so that we needed to get in. After that, it was all up to us to figure out what to read the crowd to determine which way to go with the match. Sometimes the people were wanting to watch you trade holds and have a wrestling match. Other nights, they wanted you to kick and punch, bite and bleed all over the place. So, it's just a different era and stuff back then. It was, to me, it was more fun for me. And I think that's why I like working overseas so much, is because there's many times over my career that I was told stuff, the wrestling here and stuff is real. It's not that fake stuff like y'all do in America. And, once they were saying that, I knew I had them in my hand. We tried to make it more believable, so we were able to work holds and be able to get our heat stuff out of working a hold on somebody. Now and stuff, stuff we used as finishes and stuff that are just a normal high spot.
I know, and that kills me. And then not only that, I hate to be one of those people that's in there like, I can't believe it. I hate it. And then I pay $54 to buy it.
Right.
But it just is some things I wish would change. That's all it is. It's not that I hate AEW or professional wrestling now. I love the WWE Network. I love New Japan Pro Wrestling app. I love going back watching all the stuff that I missed as a kid because I didn't know what New Japan Pro Wrestling was.
Right.
I love watching old wrestling back when I grew up watching pay-per-views I just couldn't afford to watch. I love it. I wouldn't trade in the world. And my wife told me right now there's something that I got to shut off right now. It wouldn't be the WWE Network. With that said, though, I do not watch wrestling every week like I did 10 years ago. It's redundant. They do the same stuff over and over again.
I don't really watch much of the current product that's out there. I've got friends that I'll watch some of their matches. You know, I'm real good friends with Lance Archer that's with AEW. You know, we were together in Dallas. Justin Gabriel, who was with WWE, is now with Ring of Honor, and he was with Lucha Underground. Now he wrestles as PJ Black. And I've known that kid since he was probably 8 years old because his dad was my promoter in South Africa. So, I watch their stuff, and I'll talk to them sometimes after matches.
What's the difference between overseas wrestling and U.S. wrestling to you?
I think one of the biggest thing is because the fans were not quite as educated overseas. So it was easier to go back to that 80s, early 90s type of wrestling, you know, to where we were able to, you know, play off of the fans' emotions a lot more. It wasn't so restricted. We had a lot more freedom to do what we wanted to do in a match. So that was always the big difference to me overseas versus the States, is just the fans were different. They still believed in wrestling. Whereas here, everybody watches the internet and listens to 2020 or whatever else somebody's talking about the business. They just don't believe in it as much as what they tend to overseas.
Now, you talk about being stabbed and everything. And if you had that much heat, how many riots have you started?
Oh, God. Like I said, I've wrestled in Durban, South Africa 15 times. I had 11 police escorts out. You know, I was stabbed there. I caused riots in Cape Town. My first night into South Africa, I caused a big riot in Cape Town. So, you know, that was, you know, I've had guns pulled on me. I've been on a train in India and stuff. They blew up the car behind me. You know, it wasn't really directed at me. It was just one of those crazy things of being on a train that gets blown up. So, I mean, I've had some crazy stuff in my times.
And the funny thing is, you're 7 foot. I don't go around just messing with 7 foot guys. You know, I'll take a beat down before I get bow down. But you're 7 foot. Some people you just gotta hey, I want to be your friend. But no, you just getting stabbed and shot and blown up. You got, like I said, man, you gotta be nicer. But you know, your days of professional wrestling is over. A lot of people are gonna ask, you know, a lot of people don't know this. You actually fought in, you know, the Von Erichs. What were the Von Erichs like?
You know, I never really got to wrestle against the actual kids. I got to wrestle several times with Lance Von Erich. You know, and he was the one that they kind of brought in as a cousin, you know, after David Von Erich died and Mike got sick.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
So I'm good friends with Lance and stuff. So because he was living in South Africa, so we got to know each other quite well over there, and then we did several tours around the world and stuff together. But the boys and stuff were fine. I was good friends with them when I was in high school. I used to actually, when they started wrestling in Amarillo all the time, a lot of times I would pick them up and take them to their hotel and things like that. It was kind of a ride for them, and it was cool for me because I just got to hang out with some of the wrestlers. But they were good kids, just a kind of a troubled family.
I gotta the number one question people are probably going to ask, and this is probably going to be the last question. You know, you were big in Japan. You was big in India. You were so big in South Africa that people were trying to kill you. You was big in Puerto Rico. But in America, you just was it that the money was too good overseas, or was it just, I mean, what was it? Why didn't you try to get the WCW and WWE?
Well, funny enough, I was actually getting ready to sign with WCW. I had my starting date and everything from it, and Vince McMahon bought the company, and there went my deal with WCW. They were actually talking to me about bringing me in as a tag team partner for Kevin Nash, and I was going to be a cousin or something for Kevin for some angle that they were working. But when Vince bought it, that was the end of that for me.
So you almost made the WCW,
right?
Wow. And who was the booker during that time?
I think they were doing a committee of some kind. I was dealing with Paul Orndorff when I was going through that as far as trying to get my start date and everything else. I was dealing with Paul.
Another guy that nobody really wants to mess with.
No.
Even as an old man. Even as I've seen him on TV, and he's just this very nice old man. You'll never think that he was one of the baddest guys in the professional wrestling business.
Exactly.
My dad tells me all the time, the old man is the ones you need to be scared of. The guy, that Paul Orndorff in the 80s, that's a compared to the Paul Orndorff, the nice old man. He's probably got a shotgun underneath his chair. You don't want to mess with that man.
No.
They say his arm is bad too, so Lord knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's not in good shape anymore. I'm not sure exactly what issues and stuff he was having, but I know he's not in the shape he used to be.
That's why he's even more dangerous. I don't know. I don't trust him. Abdul the Butcher in a wheelchair. Can't even walk. You think I'm going to mess with him? No. He'll probably do some Mr. Miyagi judo chop on me. No, I'm just going to be like, hey, not even want to touch him. Just stay my distance. So what are you doing today? What is the giant warrior, the Tiger Steele guy? What are you doing today? What's keeping you upbeat?
Well, I've got Parkinson's now. I've had Parkinson's for the last couple of years. So I'm just fortunate that I have a very good doctor, and she's got me on a very good pill regimen and stuff that keeps me keeps me pretty well straightened out with it. It's hard for a lot of people to realize that I've got Parkinson's unless you just watch my hands, they tremor. But
that's not really keeping you very upbeat.
No, it's tough, and I've started getting early onset dementia to go with it as well. So, it's got its problems for that. But I mean, my wife and I have a public relations company, and we also have a book publishing company. So, needless to say, she's the brains of the operation. I just do what little I can to help her.
So, you also suffering from dementia too?
Mm-hmm. It's part of it that can happen with Parkinson's.
Wow.
I had a lot of we figured it out and stuff that I had about 7 major concussions. And then, who knows what it did to me, all the chair shots that I took for years, because I wasn't really wanting to put my hand up a lot. I pretty well just took a chair shot.
Well, how are you holding? I think you just answered the question, but now you got me feeling bad because I've been joking with you for the last 45 minutes. How you holding up?
Good. I don't really let it bother me a whole lot. Like I said, I've got the stuff that I take that helps me with it. So it's really not much of a problem. I have probably more balance issues than I do anything else. But I have times and stuff I get stuck on what I'm trying to say and kind of stutter a little bit.
I mean, the Parkinson's is one thing, but the dementia is something else. How's your memory?
Getting worse. There's a lot of time. I mean, I'm on some different sites, and one of them is a Puerto Rican wrestling site. and I see where I've wrestled against certain people, and I couldn't tell you who they were to save my life.
Well, that's not, a lot of professional wrestlers. You look at a lot of professional wrestlers. I'm not trying to make you feel better or anything, but I'll listen to a lot of professional wrestlers, and hey, tell us about WrestleMania 7 or WrestleMania 6, and tell us about when you fought this person. And wrestlers are like, you can understand this. It was just another day in the office. For us fans, it was the biggest thing ever. But, I was listening to Sting talk about Starrcade 97, and he don't even remember half the match. He remembers one part. That's it. Everything else he don't remember. And if you don't tell him he was fighting Hulk Hogan, it's like, that was Starrcade 99, I believe, 2000. So, I can understand that part. Are you forgetting people's names, like kids' names or?
No, I'm still pretty good with that and stuff. I've only had it now I've been diagnosed for about 2.5 years.
And so you're still kicking.
I'm still kicking.
That's good. That's good because we got to keep the Giant Warrior around for a little bit longer.
Well, my wife would like to think so.
I wish my wife would say the same thing. my wife checks my health every day just to make sure I'm sick. It's just like, I'm still here, damn it.
Oh, mine checks on me all the time. Make sure I make all the doctor's appointments and all those fun things.
Wives are so funny. They do cute little things like when I wake, the way she wakes me up is with a pillow over my head. It's so cute. It's like, baby, once again, you're just so funny. But anyway,
see, my wife's like 5'3", so she's a little small girl.
That's a picture.
And she's 25 years older than I am. So,
that's why they call you the Giant Warrior. I hear you. I hear you, big man. Hey, I hear you, my man. That's
we've been call you for a little over 11 years now.
Y'all been what doing it?
We've been together for over 11 years.
Oh, I thought maybe the camera like broke up. It sounded like you said we've been doing it for 11. I'm like, damn, dude. Okay, don't break her. Jeff, this has been a complete honor. When I was watching that Andre the Giant Baba match, I probably seen that match about 4 or 5 times, and I never knew it was you because I really never watched international wrestling that much. Right. I was always a WCW, WWF guy. And now, now you got so much wrestling out. Oh God. You got WWE, you got, I guess you can call NXT a different federation. You got WWE, NXT, AEW, MLW, NWA on YouTube. You got Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
New Japan Pro Wrestling. You just told me they still got All Japan Pro Wrestling. You got so much wrestling that you can watch. Puerto Rico wrestling, if you want to watch Puerto Rican wrestling, Mexican Lucha Underground. If I don't even think they're still around no more, but you can still watch Mexican wrestling. They got so much wrestling on now that it's not even funny. Just pick your poison. But during the time I grew up, I was all about the Hulkamania, and I missed a lot of good wrestling. And I'm glad I got to meet you. Stay online. Everybody else, you know the drill. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button because I'm not going to get no more giant killers if you with 4 or 5 subscribers. I need 20,000 subscribers before Jeff comes back. So if you don't hit the subscribe button, Jeff says he ain't coming back.
No.
Nope.
Gotta hit that subscribe button.
Gotta hit the subscribe button. So Jeff, stay on the line. Everybody else, just forgot. Damn it, I don't even know how to close my own show. Jeff, you got anything you want to plug?
Basically, probably my Clarens Publishing is our book company. We've got some very talented writers with us, and I even give wrestlers a discount and stuff because keep it in the business. And that large public relations, we do just traditional public relations work.
All right. So that's great. Jeff, you're somebody, like I tell all my guests, I mean it with you. You're part of the CTS family. I'm so glad you got to talk to each other. Next time we get on, I know I got 20,000 more questions I really want to ask you. I just don't have the time. More questions about Terry Gordy and Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rose and Andre the Giant. I got so many more questions. I just don't got the time. And with that said, everybody else, see you next Sunday.